Hey, Jim Duncan, Nest Realty. Greg Slater with Nest Realty. It's mid-October, and we're going to be talking about a little bit of the national market, regional market, local market. So from a seller's point of view, it's mid-October. I'm talking to clients about getting pictures taken, do the projects that they're looking at doing. What are you telling sellers to do? And what is your thinking on timing for next year?
Yeah, so the first thing I do is we take a good hard look and make sure we clear off all the deferred maintenance.
Right.
That's low-hanging fruit. Those things always cost you more in the context of a real estate transaction and then just dealing with them yourself. To take some of the stress, oftentimes sellers are worried that it's going to sell fast and where they're going to go type of thing, and they're not sure if they want to list it now or next month or even next year. And so I tell them to prepare their home now. Let's go ahead and get it all photographed, and then we're nimble, right? When we have the online presentation ready, we can price the home based on market conditions. If I'm in a 30-day conversation with someone getting ready to list their home, we make a price decision on the 29th day.
Yeah.
Right. We just have to continually monitor the activity.
And for my sellers for next year, we're getting a sense of where they're probably going to be, and we're doing the deferred maintenance, we're doing the painting, the cleaning, the decluttering, we're doing all the stuff that everybody knows. It's not rocket science. You generally know what you need to do, broad brush, but we're looking at pricing in this band because the narrow band doesn't come until 48 hours before you put it on the market.
That's right. We have a lot of conversations about comparables, if we can find enough to really tell us what's going on. But then we have to apply market conditions to it,
right?
Where those interest rates are, what's the mood of the buyers out there. We also have conversations about frustrated buyers and some that certain price levels will pull somebody back that otherwise might be the right buyer for your home if you aim a little too high. Then, of course, we have to talk about new construction as competition because it is for most segments of the market, because if you're in the market and can't find what you want,
you're looking new.
You're looking at new, even if it's detached versus attached. And so it just takes a holistic approach of trying to understand all the conditions to try to find that sweet spot that'll make that home sell in the timeline the market expects it to sell. Yeah. Sometimes people, and we talk about this as a company too, the difference in these homes and their ages, and in the context of value, that deferred maintenance and older equipment. Obviously, if you're buying new, you're getting a home that's under warranty. Every component of the home is brand new. You're probably getting something that's ahead of the game in the way the home performs and what it costs to operate. And they're important considerations. And I always like to talk to my clients that are thinking about selling. When we talk about 28% versus that 20% range of new construction coming, that's our inventory growing with newer homes, and that's our inventory growing with higher performing homes that less costly to operate. So if you've bought a home and you're selling something less 10 years old, you need to make sure the marketing includes highlighting those features because the builders are highlighting those features. And so in the resale market, you have to highlight those features.
When we list homes that have anything under 10 years, really, because you look at the life expectancy of systems, HVAC 12 to 15 years ish, sometimes 20, sometimes 30, but 12 to 15 years, sometimes 4. Roof, plumbing, like the major systems are things that I advise my buyers to be mindful of because that 11 to 13 year period, a lot of those systems are on borrowed time. And you can say, well, I'm going to need to have 30 grand on hand for those emergencies in the next few years, or I can spend 70 more and get new construction. And that's 70 more, but it's also peace of mind, cash not on hand, making it an easier lifestyle. Because people, at the end of the day, they're trying to achieve a better lifestyle by being, by buying new or existing.
That's right. The floor plans are different often. Sometimes it's just the cosmetic difference that's more in tune with the current trends.
And for sellers who are looking now, I advise them, unless it's needed, not to do renovations. Because any renovation, any choice that a seller makes is going to be their choice. And it's either going to be their choice as personal to Greg, or it's going to be a choice that's going to be so bland and so generic that the buyer's going to walk through and say, well, at least it's new.
I agree.
I can fix it.
I agree 100%. Part of the effort that goes into making an updating or improvement to your home, you want to enjoy that intrinsic value that comes with it, because there aren't many things that are a dollar for dollar improvement. when you make them, and it's a little bit of a gamble, you're going to pick the wrong thing. In this market, in this low inventory environment, let's get the deferred maintenance taken care of, and then make a nice, pretty presentation of the home.
So, Greg, for the sellers who are, it's again mid-October, they're probably going to be putting the house in the market in the spring. What are 2 or 3 takeaways you would put to them to say, think about this weekend with your, when you're thinking about putting your house in the market?
Where are you going to go is number one. You really need to have a destination, and I need to understand why you're selling and what that looks like. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the presentation of the home is vital, and we spend some time talking about those things. And then I basically explain to them how we're going to market the home, but ultimately we're going to focus on that pricing strategy. I used to talk to my clients about getting into that. I could very comfortably get into a $25,000 bucket around their price, and then we decide within there where we want to go. It's a little more difficult now because you're trying to position the home to get enough showings where you get at least one offer.
Right.
And if you're lucky, you get 2 or more, and if that happens, you'll do pretty well.
I think that, I tell my sellers that we talked earlier about the pricing that being done that 48 hours, but you need to, before you hit activate on Tuesday, you need to know what your active competition is. I mean, knowing who you're going up against that weekend, I think is critical. And explaining that the number of actives is critical, the number of under contract to give you a sense of what that buyer demand is on that week, on that Tuesday. And also understand from pricing, I tell all my clients this, that my working theory is 2 weekends of disappointment. Like if you are on that $25,000 bucket and you go to the high side and you hit those first 2 weekends and you don't get any offers, then you're looking at a price reduction. Because you've been you had expectations for that first weekend, maybe this weekend. You didn't hit that second weekend, and then you're looking at the other side of that $25,000 bucket, and it's going to be a price drop.
That's right.
It should be a price drop in most instances because the sellers, if you hit that, if you miss that first 14, 15 days, those buyers, for the most part, are gone.
That's right. They're nimble and they're urgent in most cases.
Yeah. But I think the takeaway is going to be for me is we'll talk more in January when we do our 2024. It's 2024 already. Our 2024 look. I think it's going to be an interesting 24-25.
I do too. I think 2024 will feel a lot like 2023. I think this fourth quarter coming up, there will be activity, but I think you'll find more people with these interest rates where they are, and with all the prognosticators thinking they might settle back in next year, right, which it's hard to follow because they're usually inaccurate with these predictions on mortgage rates. But I think you'll see at some point people cashing it in and wait until next year to see when these spring buyers come back.
Yeah.
Well, I think you need to not just take the first agent that comes along. I think it's important to interview and understand who you're working with and seeing if they're a good fit, because there are a lot of agents with different levels of expertise. I get to see as someone who has listings how these buyers represent their clients, and sometimes the agent makes the difference in their strategies and the advice they give in getting the home or not getting the home. I've learned over time that when you're using the online search engines and you're trying to reach the listing agent, that's not who you're getting when you click on Contact Us. These leads are procured by people who pay the most for them and often just distribute them to their team. And there are some agents with less experience and knowledge of the market out there that are picking up these leads to try to get their businesses going. So it's important to interview who you're working with and make sure they're qualified to do what you want to do.
So the 3 things I have, not 5, are going to be talk to a local lender as soon as possible to understand where you are. Make sure there's no credit stuff. Make sure your credit's in order. Make sure there's no. I had one client years ago that they pulled their credit and they had a $100 medical deficiency from 15 years prior. So they paid it off. Credit score dropped like 100 points. So talk to the local lender to get that insight.
The listing agent wants to see a pre-approval from a local lender.
Yes. Agent interviews, I have buyers who they interviewed me last year and they used a 3-page set of questions. Intricate, detailed, fantastic. They hired me and I got the list of questions. So I send that to buyers now who are interviewing agents and say, hey, here's the question you should ask because it's much better than I would have put together. And third is start now. because it's, if our market in 2024 is anything like it's been the last few years, even less velocity, which I despise that term, it's still going to be the position of most buyers are going to need to make a decision that first or second weekend.
That's really good advice. I have clients that I've been working with for 6, 12, 18 months or longer, and they understand the market very well right now, and they're more nimble and decisive, because ultimately that's what happens in these competitions. Mm-hmm. The best buyer might be the one who's missed out on the most homes and is just tired of going through the process, and their urgency level is so high they just make the bid that wins the home.
Have you ever had a buyer walk into a house and you know it's the right one for them, but they're not ready yet to make that decision?
All the time, all the time. And that's the thing. We have to give advice on market value and competition, and you have to make a decision if you're the purchaser, if you're going to get in the competition or make an offer based on the best indications of market value. That's a tough place to be.
Yeah, but it takes time. I mean, it's why I tell my buyers now, interview and hire a good agent now and start learning your market band, as I call it.
That's great advice. I often say I want you to be engaged in the market just while you're in the real estate market. This is not fun for people that aren't in our line of work, but I want you to see the market through my eyes while you're engaged in it.
I try to get my buyers to where they know the market, their specific market band, 4 beds, 2.5 baths in this school district or whatever, as well as if not better than I do, for that 4 or 5 month period that they're looking. And that's my goal when I'm representing my buyers. For sellers, 3 things. 3 things that a seller should be thinking about or doing.
Okay, I think going back to that advice of starting to watch the market before you see you're ready to go on the market is one of them. Same, you've got to interview more than one agent and get to know who's really capable of helping you the best. And then, you have to make a good presentation of your home. Buyers are walking through these homes ready to move in. And you got to let them be able to see that they can move in.
I tell my sellers that the first time that buyer walks through your house is probably the second or third time they've been through it virtually, because they're looking at the floor plans, they're looking at the photos, they're looking at the Google Maps, they're driving by. I mean, they're doing their work before they get there. So when they, one of my colleagues, I can never find the source, said that a buyer chooses in the first 15 seconds if they're going to buy your house, which I think is might be a little bit hyperbolic, but that, don't get a second chance to make a first impression.
Well, there's an emotional reaction, particularly with someone under duress that's been in the process for all. When they see something and they know it checks 8 out of 10 boxes instead of 6 out of 10 boxes, they have an emotional reaction, and then that creates momentum, and you want to be prepared to capture that momentum.
And I would say my last piece of advice for buyers and sellers is really ask the right questions, hire the right agent who represents you and you feel good about, and then ask more questions, because you need to be confident with your decisions, because some of these decisions are going to come fast, and they're all going to be life altering in some ways. Whether you buy, whether you sell, whether you take the offer, whether you negotiate, making sure that you're as comfortable and confident as you can be in that environment, I think is critical.
Yeah, questions about how you manage what happens when you do get the offer or more than one, and all the different, there's price, and then there's about 12 other terms you have to negotiate through, and you want to put the puzzle together the right way.
Yeah.
What it's like when you list a home, you get to feel the urgency firsthand, right? Or what it's like when you have 2 or 3 buyers shopping, you get to feel the urgency from that side. Obviously, there's a lot of search refreshes going on, and buyers oftentimes will find out about a new listing before I do, but you have to have a conversation. I find myself trying to explain the rules realtors put on the game more than ever, right? We got to understand what coming soon means versus active. Mm-hmm. And so once they're educated on that, we let them do their searches. Obviously, we try to go see the home as soon as possible, understand the context of how that seller is going to manage, whether they're just going to take offers as they come or they're going to set a date to get their offers presented, help them understand that, and then try to let them have enough time to see the house, and hopefully, in a perfect world, take a day off and then maybe see it again, right? But you don't always get that opportunity.
No, again, I think it's a matter of preparation. I mean, for the buyers and the sellers. I mean, sellers need to be prepared for people traipsing through their house, and then a lot of this time of year, I think, correct me if you see something different. A lot of the buyers coming through now may not be the urgent buyers that you're looking for.
That's right.
Because they're looking at the 2024 market and they want to understand the inventory to know, what, oh, okay, this is on the market in November. Cool. Now that I've seen it, what's January, February, March going to bring?
The other thing is it's easy to misrepresent or get the wrong feeling of a home based on how it looks online. Often when someone rules out a house I think otherwise might be close enough to go, I encourage them to go see it. Because sometimes, have you ever heard your wife say, I don't want to waste your time? You're not wasting my time, and they're not wasting your time, because even showing them something they're pretty sure they're not going to buy is an educational experience, because they see the house, they have a reaction to it, and then you can tell them later how that turned out. Right. And that part of the education is vital. It
takes time to get to the right one. I mean, I think I tell my buyers that you need to see enough homes that you don't like to understand and appreciate the one that you do.
Sometimes it's a process of elimination.
So it's never boring. It's always interesting, and it's a matter of understanding what the buyers and sellers need.
What's most interesting to me on the seller side is the level of anxiousness sometimes my clients have, because they aren't fully aware of what's happening in the market, or they feel maybe they've showed up too late and they're not going to be able to sell their home. Mm-hmm. And having those conversations and helping them understand the market conditions, and then getting on that path that will create success for them is always interesting.
It's sort of taking for the buyers. What I like to do when everybody agrees is for the sellers to set up an automated search for them, so that they get their whatever their competition is going to be. They start getting emails about their market band 4 or 5 months prior to going on the market, so they can see that when we come in on that Tuesday to talk about the price in the market, they've been seeing and feeling it. And so so we are reaffirming what they've been seeing every day. And we're contextualizing with more data and better data what they've been seeing for several months.
Yeah, I think the point of all this is the more you're exposed to the market, the easier it is to interpret, and the less stress you'll have when you make that decision.
Again, I think, even in this market, I think with the right agent with whom you have a good relationship and you trust, that we can ask your questions and understand exactly what's being put in front of you. Because sometimes you make that decision, I'm glad my clients have done their homework for weeks and months ahead of time.
So what is your conversation now around interest rates and pre-approvals? Sometimes people have an expectation of what they can afford based on a monthly payment, but maybe they haven't looked at it in the context of current interest rates and cash needed to get to the loan amount they want.
I have two answers. One is going to be for that buyer who's evaluating the market and they're looking at the fear-mongering headlines of the Fed is doing X. One, the Fed is not tied directly to the mortgage rate. So Fed is a thing that they should be mindful of, but not the thing that they should be mindful of. Talk to the local lender, understand where their comfortable range is, and also understand what the actual payment's going to be. Because you have the principal, interest, taxes, insurance. Then you have utility costs to operate the home, transportation costs, gas, fuel, et cetera. So, HOA dues. So you need to factor all of that into it. But then when the buyer says, or the seller says, what are the rates are here today, what are they going to do next year? And my answer is I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. I think anybody who tells you with confidence that next year is going to do X, they're selling you something. So I think you tell them that it is, this is the date and rates are here, and that's where we make our decision. Because what's tomorrow going to do? It's going to go a little bit up, a little bit down, but it's not going to spike one way or the other. So you know where you are and how you qualify. Because if, from a buyer's point of view, I tend to be more risk averse for my clients. If your qualification is based on 1/8 of a point, we need to probably lower your price point. So it's a bit more comfortable, so you're not going to be super stretched beyond your comfort range.
Just like we talk about that relationship building with agents like ourselves to get a holistic approach to what you're trying to do, I think it works with the lender too. Pick your lender early that you trust. Yep. And have an ongoing conversation, because if you are interested in the upward or downward pressure of interest rates, or the different instruments available to you to manipulate that interest rate by the term of the loan or the type of the loan, there's a learning curve there that these mortgage instruments and products are constantly changing, and the rules around them are constantly changing. And even I rely on a mortgage broker to keep me up to date on these things, even on a monthly basis. I
think when we both, for a bit of history, when we both started practicing, we both probably qualified buyers. we had our calculators, we would do the qualifications, and it reached a certain point where the market changed, the mortgage market changed so much that I just go to the right people. Right. I know the lenders I know and trust, and I know they'll take care of the clients, and I give my clients to them because those lenders are much more attuned to their world than I am ever going to be, and more than ever want to be.
It's difficult to time the market, right? The big decisions comes first, and then you figure out if it works financially.
Yep.
What are your talking points around clients that want to talk about the future of interest rates in relationship to what they're paying now? Maybe you're getting asked about adjustable rate mortgages, or you're getting asked about refinancing. Mm-hmm. And do you like the expression, buy the home, rent the mortgage?
Date the mortgage.
I didn't even get it right.
No, it's date
I don't
the
like
rate,
it either.
Date the rate, marry the mortgage.
Yes,
I think if you're a buyer in this environment, yes, you're at 7.5 or whatever it's going to be. Yes, you might be able to refinance in the future. Cool, you might be able to do that. Qualify based on today. Be comfortable with that payment today, and do not bank on being able to refinance in X period of years. I think anybody who says that in 3 years you'll be able to refi and save money, they're selling you something. But I think that to your point about ARMs, I've had more clients do 10-1 ARMs this year than I have had in many, many years.
Yes, they're definitely making a comeback. I try to get a feel for my clients' risk aversion, or some of my clients don't even want to have these conversations with me. They want to do what they want to do, and that's no problem. But when we get into these conversations, we try to have some common sense around it. The most simple thing to know is the longer you own a home, the better the investment it generally is. Because, right. And I also, when they want to talk about refinancing, I also caution them before they refinance, you should really understand the math of that refinance, because saving a little bit of money on a monthly basis is not always the best decision when you calculate the cost of that refinance versus setting your payment back to payment one of $360. Yeah. And we have those types of conversations.
I think it's you make the decision based on what the mortgage rate is today. Expect your taxes will go up. Expect your insurance will go up. But if you can refi in the future, great. But I wouldn't advise planning and banking on that, because one, rates might not come down. Who knows? And two, you might just end up selling the house anyway.
That's good advice.
If you have any questions, I'm Jim at nestrealty.com.
And I'm Greg Slater, Greg Slater at nestrealty.com.
Email us anytime.